So the New York Liberty, they just won their very first WNBA championship. They took down the Minnesota Lynx. You'd think everyone would be like super excited, you know? But their victory is kind of being overshadowed by a pretty heated debate. And it's all about the officiating, particularly in that final game. So we're going to dive into all of it,
Yeah.
The controversial calls of the impact on the players and what this means for the league as a whole.
What's interesting here is that the Liberty's win, it was undeniably thrilling. They clinched the championship with a score of 67-62, but it went into overtime. And a lot of folks are pointing to a specific foul call as the potential turning point.
Okay, so let's unpack that. For those who didn't see the game, can you set the scene for us?
Absolutely. So picture this. The game is incredibly close, down to the wire. The Lynx, they're up by 2 points with just 5.2 seconds left in regulation. Then a foul is called on Alanna Smith. This leads to Breanna Stewart stepping up to the free throw line for the Liberty. She makes both shots, tying the game and forcing overtime.
And that's when the Liberty, they pulled ahead for the win.
Exactly. Now, while the Liberty, they ultimately earned the championship, the controversy really comes from whether that foul call on Smith was the right one. Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve, she certainly didn't think so. Her post-game statement actually went viral. She said, "This expletive was stolen from us." Strong words, to say the least.
Wow, she did not hold back. I mean, it's totally understandable for a coach to be upset after a tough loss. But was her reaction, justified?
It's definitely sparked a huge debate. Let's look at some of the numbers from that last game. The Liberty shot 25 free throws, while the Lynx only had 8. And in terms of fouls called, it was 21 for Minnesota versus 17 for New York. So those discrepancies, they definitely raise questions about, consistency in the officiating.
So it wasn't just Reeve overreacting in the heat of the moment.
Not necessarily. Concerns about the officiating were actually voiced by both teams. And this was throughout the whole final series, not just in that last game. Liberty coach Sandy Brondello, she even said, all we want is fair. Okay, so if we were getting hit, that's a foul.
So both coaches felt like the officiating was inconsistent. It's interesting that Brondello felt that way even though her team was benefiting from the calls. It seems like this goes beyond just one team, feeling sore after a loss.
Exactly, and it really highlights how these officiating issues, even if they're unintentional, they can impact the entire game and, everyone involved.
And this wasn't just contained within the WNBA, right? Didn't some pretty big names in basketball chime in on social media?
Oh, absolutely. LeBron James, he tweeted, "I'm sorry, but that wasn't a foul. Let the damn players dictate the outcome of a close, battled, tested game." And Damian Lillard added, "Refs called this game like they knew the assignment in the second half, boy." So when NBA stars start commenting on WNBA officiating, it's become a much larger conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like Reeve's statement, whether you agree with the language or not, it really opened the floodgates. Suddenly everyone's talking about the officiating in the WNBA.
Right. And this conversation is happening against a backdrop of record-breaking success for the league. This season saw the highest viewership and attendance numbers in WNBA history. The playoffs, they averaged over 1 million viewers per game. And that final game, it had a sold-out crowd of over 18,000.
So on one hand, you have this incredible milestone for the WNBA and for women's basketball in general. But on the other hand, you have this controversy. It's casting a shadow over what should be a moment of pure celebration for the league and for the Liberty.
It's a complex situation for sure, but it also really underscores the high stakes involved. The WNBA, it's gaining momentum. It's attracting more fans and media attention than ever before.
And this controversy has the potential to either help or hinder that progress. It all depends on how the league chooses to address it.
Exactly. The way they handle this situation, it'll send a really powerful message, a message about their commitment to fairness and the integrity of the game.
So we've got this controversial call that sparks outrage from the Lynx. It ignites a debate about officiating in the WNBA. And it even draws attention from NBA superstars. But this isn't just about one bad call, is it? There are bigger issues at play here, right?
You're absolutely right. It goes way beyond this specific incident, this controversy. It forces us to consider the role of referees in any sport, how much impact they should have on the outcome, and what mechanisms are in place to ensure accountability.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What does this mean for the WNBA moving forward? And what are the Lynx and the Liberties specifically? How do they navigate this situation?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Both teams are in a unique position now. The Lynx, understandably, they're grappling with the sting of what they feel was an unfair loss. It's going to be tough to process a championship loss, especially with all this added controversy.
Yeah, you can only imagine the emotions they're going through. To come so close to a championship, only to have it, potentially slip away. Because of a questionable call. That's got to be heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And this isn't just about the players and coaches either. The Lynx fans who showed up in record numbers this season, they're feeling this deeply too.
So where do the Lynx go from here?
Well, they've got some big decisions to make in the offseason. Do they run it back with the same core, or do they shake things up? And how do they address their concerns about the officiating moving forward?
It's interesting because even with the controversy, this season proved that the Lynx are still a force to be reckoned with. They made it to the finals. They have a dedicated fan base. And Nafisa Collier, their star player and defensive player of the year, she's only getting better.
Right, and she even added her voice to the officiating debate. On social media, Collier pointed out that she had a hard time getting foul calls in her favor during the finals, implying that opposing players might have been getting away with holding her.
So it wasn't just Coach Reeve and the coaching staff who felt like something was off. The players themselves were experiencing it on the court.
Exactly. And when the athletes themselves are expressing these concerns, it carries even more weight.
And what about the Liberty? How do they move forward knowing that their championship win is forever tied to this controversy?
That's a tricky situation. On one hand, they absolutely deserve to celebrate their achievement. They fought hard, they earned their victory, and they made history for their franchise. But on the other hand, it's impossible to ignore the cloud of controversy hanging over their win.
I wonder how the players are feeling. It must be a strange mix of elation and maybe even a bit of guilt or discomfort.
You're right. And this brings up another fascinating layer to this story, the human element. We often get caught up in the stats, the scores, the strategies, but we forget that these are real people with real emotions.
Behind the jerseys and the team names are individual players who've poured their hearts and souls into this game. They've dedicated their lives to reaching this level. And to have their achievements potentially overshadowed by something like this, it's got to be tough.
Absolutely, and this applies to both teams. The Lynx players are dealing with the disappointment of a close loss that they believe wasn't fair. The Liberty players are trying to celebrate a historic win that comes with a lot of baggage.
So how do we move forward in a way that acknowledges both the accomplishment and the controversy?
I think it starts with having open and honest conversations. The WNBA needs to address the officiating concerns head-on. Perhaps they could consider implementing a third-party review system, similar to what we see in the NFL where controversial calls can be reviewed.
That makes sense. It would show a commitment to transparency and accountability. Yeah. And it would give fans more confidence in the officiating.
Exactly. And this isn't just about implementing new rules or procedures, it's also about fostering a culture of respect and open communication within the league. Players, coaches, and officials need to be able to voice their concerns without fear of retribution.
It sounds like this controversy, as difficult as it's been, could actually be a catalyst for positive change within the WNBA.
I agree. This could be an opportunity for the league to step up and show that they're committed to creating a fair and equitable playing field for all.
It feels like we've only scratched the surface here. This whole situation is so multi-layered. We've got the immediate impact on the Lynx and the Liberty, the questions about officiating and accountability, and then this bigger conversation about equity and fairness in sports in general.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, and it's important to acknowledge that these conversations, they aren't new. This fight for equity in women's sports has been going on for decades.
Right, and this controversy, it feels like a microcosm of that larger struggle. You have these incredibly talented athletes, they're competing at the highest level, yet they're still facing all these systemic challenges.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just pay disparities or media coverage. It's about ensuring that women's sports are treated with the same respect and seriousness as men's sports.
It's about recognizing that these athletes deserve fair officiating, consistent rule enforcement, and opportunities to really showcase their skills without being undermined by all these external factors.
And that's where I think the role of fans becomes so crucial. We can't just sit back and be passive consumers of sports entertainment. We have a responsibility to be informed, to engage in these conversations, and to advocate for change.
So what can fans do to actually make a difference?
Well, for starters, we can continue to support the WNBA. Attend games, watch on TV, buy merchandise, follow players on social media. All of these actions show that we're invested in the league's success.
And it's not just about showing up, it's about speaking up. If you see something that seems unfair or unjust, don't be afraid to call it out. Use your voice on social media, write to your favorite team, engage in discussions with other fans.
And remember, this isn't about attacking individuals or assigning blame. It's about pushing for systemic change, for more transparency, for a culture of accountability within the league.
Because at the end of the day, we all benefit. when the playing field is level, when the rules are applied fairly, and when the athletes themselves are empowered to determine the outcome of the game.
Absolutely. And that's a goal worth striving for, not just in the WNBA, but in all sports.
So for those of you listening, here's something to think about. As you continue to follow your favorite sports, whether it's basketball, soccer, tennis, or anything else, pay attention to the officiating. Are the calls consistent? Are the rules being applied fairly? Are the athletes being treated with respect?
And if you see something that raises concerns, don't be afraid to ask questions, to start conversations, and to advocate for change because your voice matters.
This WNBA Finals controversy, as messy and complicated as it is, it's really sparked a much-needed conversation about the state of officiating and the broader issue of equity in sports. And that conversation is just beginning.
So let's keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a better, fairer, and more equitable sporting world.
That's it for our deep dive into this WNBA Finals controversy. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep the conversation going.